it's Kira and welcome back to another video. Today is feeling very much like a musical Christmas Eve for me because today is Thursday the 6th of June 2024 and tomorrow at pretty much exactly this time, about 6 p.m. on Friday the 7th of June, I'm going to be up in Edinburgh watching Taylor Swift at the Eras tour, which I'm just so excited about, and I'm also just in a slight state of disbelief that it's actually finally here, because I feel like I've just spent so much of the last year of my life counting down the days and the months and the weeks and looking forward to it, and now I'm only one day away and I cannot believe that this time tomorrow I'm actually going to be there watching Taylor Swift live for the first time. It is just so exciting. So I've also started my weekend a little bit early this week because I've booked the Friday off to give me time to travel up to Edinburgh. So I'm going to be driving up first thing tomorrow morning. I'm seeing Taylor with my friend Katie, who lives in Scotland, so very handily I didn't have any of the stress of having to find accommodation because I'm driving up, staying with her. We're going to go and see Taylor Swift together and it is going to be exceptional. And I also feel like I cannot start this vlog without a shout out to the very reason that I'm going to see Taylor Swift at all, which is my lovely friend Em, who a lot of you will know as A Little Writer Em. She's been on this channel so many times, but essentially I was down in London with Em for a work day of this time last year, probably maybe July last year, and it was when the Eras tour tickets got released. I actually didn't get a code and neither did Katie, so we had kind of resigned ourselves to the fact that we probably weren't going to be going to the Eras tour, and Em was sat there panic buying her tickets because she was so desperate to make sure that she got through the queue and got them, and only after she had literally pressed purchase, given all of her information, got the tickets through and it was all sorted, did she realise that she had accidentally booked Edinburgh tickets instead of London or Liverpool, which were the two places that she was looking for. So she then actually did manage to get tickets for London and Liverpool as well, and then me and Katie swooped in and managed to take the Edinburgh tickets off her hands, and it just was the perfect mistake that could have happened, and now we all get to go to the Eras tour and everyone is happy. But yeah, big shout out to Em for the most perfect mistake that she could have made, because it has honestly made my life. I would have been very much dealing with FOMO if I wasn't going to the Eras tour. So there we go, going to the Eras tour and I'm so excited. But before I do have a very exciting reading update for you as well, because last time I spoke to you I was in the middle of a couple of books. 3 in fact, although I think I only talked about 2 of them in the vlog, and I think I have finally managed to leave my reading slump behind me because I have managed to finish all 3 books that I was in the middle of. I'm also listening to an audiobook and I've started a new book as well, so I think we are time well due for a reading update. I'm going to start with the 2 books that you knew that I was reading. So the first one of those would be A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas, the 3rd book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. I would say this one was maybe my least favourite of the 3 books so far, but on the whole I did really enjoy it still, and the second half of this book, or maybe the last third, I really liked, and I liked that more than the first book in the series. But there were some parts of this book that I just found to be quite dull, a bit of a drag, maybe a little bit repetitive, and then the last third really picked up and just was so incredible. But it did feel like you had to put in a little bit more work to get to the good stuff in this book, as opposed to, I think that's similar to A Court of Thorns and Roses where it starts off quite slowly, but because that's a much shorter book, being only 300 pages, you don't have to put in anywhere near as much time to get the payoff, whereas this book, it really did feel like there was a bit more effort to get to the good stuff. And then in the middle of the series, A Court of Mist and Fury is just incredible from start to finish. But I did really enjoy this one. I haven't ordered the next 2 books in the series yet. I know the one to follow this one is a little novella, and then there's one final book in the series, but I'm also very interested to see how that plays out, because if I'm correct, the first 3 books were intended to just be a trilogy, and that is essentially Feyre's story. And I believe that the novella and then the final book in the series, or the final one so far, because I think there are actually more planned now, but the final one that we have so far, I think that starts to follow a different character. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how things switch up between this book and the next few, but I'm really excited to be continuing on with the series. I've had like mixed reviews as to people saying I'm either going to love Throne of Glass if I eventually read that, or that I'm not going to like it anywhere near as much as A Court of Mist and Fury or Court of Thorns and Roses and the rest of this series. So all I'll say is I'm intrigued and really enjoying exploring like a completely different genre of fiction to what I usually read. I find it's like much more action based than I would ever normally go for, but it has such a nice interweaving of romance and like history and all that kind of stuff that I think it has enough of the things that I would normally look for in books to pull me in, and it's completely like converted me into a romantasy lover. So Court of Wings and Ruin has ticked off. I rated the first 2 books in the series 5 stars and I rated this one 4 stars just because, like I say, it felt a little bit slower. The next book was, I would say, a crushing disappointment, and that was Darkly Dreaming Dexter, which is the first book in an 8-book series, which is of course the inspiration for the TV series Dexter. What's wrong, Oscar? What? Oh, what do you want to say? You can stay there while I talk about books. How about that? Okay, so Darkly Dreaming Dexter is the basis for the Dexter series, and it does largely follow the same plot as the first series of Dexter, and I was hoping that it was going to be just as gripping as the first series of Dexter, because you literally cannot stop watching from the very first episode, but it just had nowhere near the same appeal as the TV show. The characters felt so much flatter, and it's actually really incredible that they managed to create such a great TV series out of this book, because I feel like it just doesn't really give you a lot to go off of in the slightest. A lot of the characters are really funny, and you can really tell like the way that they like bounce off each other and vibe with one another, and I feel like the actors that they picked for this series were just so good, and this just felt a little bit flat, and also like it's fairly short, and I feel like the ending is very rushed and you don't have anywhere near the same level of like build up of anticipation. There are far less Easter eggs than you got in the series, and all in all it just felt like a bit of a disappointment after what has been like the most incredibly obsessive TV series that I have just absolutely loved every single episode of. So bit of a disappointment, but moving on to more promising things, also TV series inspired, is When He Was Wicked, Bridgerton's story, and this is the one that focuses on Francesca, who is like the 3rd youngest child, so she's very much in the middle of the Bridgerton family. She's meant to be one of the siblings that stands out a little bit more from the others by not standing out. She is much more of like an introverted wallflower type character, I guess maybe more similar to like a Penelope type character than the other Bridgerton siblings, and she kind of just like enjoys sitting on the periphery of all of the rest of the family. Although she absolutely loves them, she just doesn't feel like she completely fits in with them. So I actually started this book months ago, and it was definitely a victim of my reading slump. I just started it, was really enjoying it, and then for some reason just stopped picking it up. But when Bridgerton returned to our screens on Netflix a few weeks ago, I decided to pick it back up again, because Francesca actually played a bigger role in this series of Bridgerton so far than she has done in any of the previous ones, and it inspired me to dive back into her story. Her story, I think, actually might be maybe my second favourite of the books. My favourite was Benedict's story, because I just, first of all, love him as a character, and also I just loved the way that his story played out. It was very much like a Cinderella type tale, and I loved it. But this one I feel like just feels quite unique compared to the others, and the reason for that being is that when the story begins, Francesca is already married, and she has been married for a couple of years and is really enjoying a life of freedom away from her family, and in a much quieter sort of lifestyle with just her husband and then her husband's cousin, who is basically like the 3rd part of their puzzle. He is like their best friend to both of them, and they are just like this dynamic trio, and they all have an incredible time. But very early on to the story, and this is not a spoiler because it tells you it on the blurb, but very early on into the story, Francesca's husband suddenly passes away, leaving her a widow, and then we kind of see her deciding whether or not she wants to remarry and making some of those decisions for herself. So I feel like it places our main character in a completely different scenario to that we've seen in any of the other stories, because she has already experienced marriage and life as a married woman, and that puts her in a very different position in the world and in society's eyes, because she's no longer like a debutante. She is single but also has the status of a married woman, and so I feel like it just allows her more freedom and flexibility for when it comes to finding romance again. And I just think it was such an interesting way to explore a romance, and I absolutely loved it. It also crosses paths in the timeline wise with both Colin and Eloise's story, so they all happen in quite quick succession, which I really liked. So yeah, really loved this one, and I'm definitely going to be picking up Hyacinth's book, which I think is the next one, and then Gregory to finish it off. I'm very interested with those ones because those siblings are obviously still so young in the TV series that I just have no idea what their stories are going to be about and like where their stories are going to go. But that's not what I'm reading next, because I've decided to stick to the fantasy genre but maybe move a little bit away from the romance side of things and try and dip my toe into something a little bit more like true fantasy. It's a very popular book though, so sticking in the same theme as Sarah J Maas in that respect, and I have picked up Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I'm only a couple of chapters into this book so far, so very much near the beginning and far too early to have really formed an opinion. But it has dragons, so I like Game of Thrones, so I'm thinking maybe there's a crossover there in my mind that if I like Game of Thrones and I like House of the Dragon, that maybe I'll like this one as well. I love the cover, the black and gold looks exceptional, and I'm really excited to try and get into this one. So I'm going to pack this in my bag in case I have any time for reading up in Scotland, but then yeah, I'm going to go to bed very early tonight, probably not going to do any more reading today, and then get on my merry way up to Edinburgh for Taylor Swift tomorrow morning. So of course I'll bring you along, and I can't wait to show you my extremely sparkly outfit, which is just perfect for the Eras tour. I honestly feel like you couldn't write this story, but I am on my way to the Eras tour, as we talked about yesterday. I've literally driven about 15 minutes from home and then got a low tyre pressure message on my car, stopped at a petrol station thinking maybe it just needed some air, which I've never done before, so even that in and of itself was going to be a challenge, but looked at my back tyre and lo and behold, there is a nail in it. So I'm now scrambling to find a garage that's actually open because I've set off early and nothing's really open yet. I found one. They don't carry new tyres, but I have a spare and they are going to fit the spare tyre for me, and fingers crossed that is it. But oh my god, I feel like this just, you couldn't write it, honestly. Of all the days to get a puncture in your tyre, it would be the day that you're driving up to Scotland for the Eras tour. So wish me luck, fingers crossed this is the only hurdle I have to cross over today.
Just had an update from our control, and as we suspected, it is a serious signal fault. Trains are moving, but they're only managing to move one train at a time through the affected area.
It's all the same for you, it's the same to me. So we could call it evening, you could call me babe for the weekend. 'Tis a damn season, right this town. Staying at my parents' house, the road not taking looks real good now. And it always leads to you in my hometown. And I miss you, I miss Sparkle.
I think we could all agree I've looked better. I'm feeling so tired and my voice sounds and feels a little bit horrendous right now, but aside from that, I'm feeling 10 out of 10 incredible because last night was just amazing. I feel like I'm still on high because it was just such a good night. I was expecting it to be incredible, but it was just like so much better than even my expectations because I feel like you just can't prepare yourself for the atmosphere, and you know that there are going to be so many people there, but I feel like, again, you can't really appreciate what that's like until you're actually physically there in the stadium, and it was just incredible. Also, like, the surprise songs, I feel like we could not have gotten better choices for me personally. So my two favourite Taylor Swift albums, it is a hard choice, but I would say that consistently the two that I like the most are Evermore and Midnights. So I was kind of hoping for something from either of those two albums, or something from Folklore or something from Speak Now. And so I was like quite nervous because I wanted songs that I actually knew and could like belt along to, and we ended up getting Would've, Could've, Should've, which was my like top two choices for a Midnight song. It was either Maroon, which I knew we weren't going to get because that had just been done in Paris, or Would've, Could've, Should've. So I was absolutely buzzing when she started playing that. And then we also got that crossed with I Know Places from 1989 Volt, and then we also got 'Tis a Damn Season on the piano, which is an Evermore song that I love. It's one of my favourites, and that was crossed with Daylight from Lover. So I feel like we got such a great selection and it was incredible. So as of right now, like I said, I'm feeling tired and I've definitely looked better, but I've woken up to the most incredible view in my friend's house. So I'm going to go downstairs, I think we're going to have a coffee and watch Love Island, go for some breakfast, and then it's my mum's birthday. So we're going to go, I'm going to go back down to Leeds, another 4-hour drive ahead of me, fingers crossed for no car issues this time around, and then we're going out for a meal later. So busy day, and I'm feeling so excited, so happy still, because that was just incredible. Few days with my eyes. They have been just so horrendously itchy. I feel like I'm finally on the mend because I went to the pharmacy the other day and finally decided to ask for some genuine medical attention, because I'm the sort of person that literally will not go to the doctor or any medical professional unless I absolutely have to. But I feel like I reached a point the other day where I woke up, my eyes were so dry, so painful, so itchy, very swollen, and I was like, do you know what, I think I actually need to go and see someone for this. And lo and behold, they gave me a like eye cream to put on and they seem to be on the mend. So turns out sometimes going to the doctors can actually help. So I feel like I'm finally feeling a little bit more myself again, and hopefully a bit less jump scary, because genuinely the day when I woke up and decided I needed to go and seek medical attention, I don't think I even could have filmed because I would have been such a jump scare for you all. So very, very glad to be feeling like I'm on the mend. But it is now Saturday and I'm actually just about to head out to work with Jay for a few hours
hours this morning. He works like outdoors on an estate, and he works mostly in forestry, but every few weekends someone works a weekend shift, and that's mostly to look after or check in on the livestock. And because we're coming out of like spring and baby animals season, there are, I think, a few lambs that need bottle feeding. We also get to drive through a deer park, and I'm hoping that we maybe will see some baby deer. There are also loads of calves, so I'm going to work with Jay for the morning, and I'm very excited about it. And then another perk of going to work with Jay is there is a cafe nearby that we can go to for a quick lunch break that just has the most incredible cakes and hot chocolate, so I'm very excited about that. And then I think Jay is going to carry on working for the afternoon, and I'm going to stay in the cafe for a little bit and do some reading of Fourth Wing. I'm now on page 144, so getting there, but still I say fairly slow progress, but I'm hoping this weekend to get a bit of a jump start and read like a significant amount more. I'm actually really enjoying the book, and I'm obviously drawing parallels to A Court of Thorns and Roses with this book, largely because I think that is just the case when you're fairly new to a genre, that you kind of like compare it to other books in a similar genre that you have read before, and at least that's how I do it. I feel like I can't read or watch something without comparing it to something else. But specifically in this book, what I'm drawing the parallels to is that I mentioned there is a romance going on between Violet, our main character, and then this person that she has known for her whole life. But then the further we're getting into the book, now this other character has been introduced who initially you view as kind of like the villain, but then the more you get to know the characters, the more you start to see there are other layers to this character that you first of all just viewed as a villain, and then also that the character that you thought was good isn't bad necessarily, but let's just say he's maybe a little bit Tamlin coded, where he is just very like overprotective, but at the cost of like dampening the main character's ability to succeed and chase their ambitions. So I feel like it's interesting to see how this love triangle is going to play out with that in mind. But now that I'm on chapter 11, I'm just getting a little bit impatient because I want to get to the bit where they can have the opportunity to bond with dragons, and I feel like it's taking a little bit too long to get there, but I'm hoping I might reach that part today and see where it goes. So with that said, I'm probably holding Jay up, so I'm going to head off, go to work for the morning, and then do some reading with some coffee and cake.
I get a little bit breathless, my thoughts are too big. Can I get some comfort, please? I guess I should have been honest, a break to my heart. It's weighing me down, baby. I'm like a river that's overflowed. The sooner you know it, the less do we hurt. Let me speak the truth. I know you don't want to face it. You think it's too late, but I can see past the rain.
I think because I've seen so many people raving about Fourth Wing, and then since the sequel came out, so many people talking about that as well, I went into this book expecting it to be like an immediate, gripping, like reading success that I just wasn't going to want to put down, and that wasn't the case for me. I started out this book and it definitely has felt like a slow burn read in my opinion, and I'm interested to know if anyone else who's read this book has had that same experience. What I can say is that I'm so glad that for the past few months I've set myself this minimum daily reading target of 10 pages a day, because I can guarantee if I didn't have that minimum target holding myself accountable, I would not have continued on with this book, because quite frankly the beginning of the book just didn't grip me. I didn't hate it, but I also wasn't particularly invested, and I'm so glad that I persevered, because I'm now on page 266, and that is pretty much bang on halfway through this book. And over the weekend I just like flipped a switch in terms of how I felt about this book, and I feel like things really started to ramp up. Without giving away too many spoilers, the plot has become a lot more dragony in the last like 100 pages, and I'm just enjoying it so much more. I feel like characters are becoming more established, there are tensions that I think feel more grounded in actual personality clashes, as opposed to at the beginning where there are tensions between characters, but it is more so just like unfounded rivalry because they're also desperate to be successful, whereas I didn't find that as interesting as now what we've got, which is rivalries and tensions that have developed as characters have gotten to know each other and their relationships with each other have developed. So I'm finding it so much more interesting, loving the introduction of the dragons properly into the plot, and it's now gotten to the point where I just do not want to put the book down, which is very handy because I'm literally, just as we speak, about to leave the house to go down to London for a work trip, and I always love to have a good book with me for a train ride down to London, and I am just so excited to see where this book goes. I don't want to be overly ambitious, but I think it is quite realistic to expect that I might get this book finished either today on the way down to London, or certainly if not today then tomorrow when I'm on the way back, because I feel like I'm just at such a point in the book now where I'm going to fly through it, and a train journey is the perfect opportunity to sort of like really dive into a book. However, I'm like halfway through and I am such a chronic overpacker, and specifically I'm an overpacker in the context of like I have such a what if mentality. So I'm like, what if I finish this book on the way down, because I'm over halfway into it now and I might have no book left to read on the way back, which just sends me into a spiral and a panic, even though reality is I probably will just have like the right amount of book to read it and finish it on the way back. But equally, I can't shift the idea that I've got only half of the book left and I might run out of books to read. So I feel like I'm also going to have a look at my shelves and see if I can find just like a thin book that I can put in my bag that won't waste too much space, but will also ease my mind in the knowledge that if I finish this book, I'll have another book to turn onto straight away. But all that to say, I'm heading down to London and I'm going to be hopefully finishing Fourth Wing. So the next time I speak to you, I should have some reading updates and a final review of this book, which I'm very excited about. Of course, the actual purpose of my trip down to London was work, and I went into the office, had a good day at work yesterday, so that was ticked off my to-do list. But for me, the real purpose of the trip, and the one that I was giving far more importance to, was trying to finish Fourth Wing, and all I can say is mission accomplished, and also perfectly executed, because I was finishing the final chapter of this book as I pulled into the train station in Leeds yesterday evening, so I could not have had a more perfect amount of this book left to read, and oh my god, I just loved it so much. Don't know if I loved it more than I loved A Court of Mist and Fury, because that book was exceptional, but potentially the second half of this book, it just gripped me. I was devouring it. I did not want to put it down. I became obsessed. So it does very much mirror ACOTAR and my reading experience there in a lot of ways. I think obviously, like I've mentioned, some parallels between the characters and particularly the romance elements of things, and also the fact that I think ACOTAR is a bit of a slow start to begin with as well, but by the time you get into it you just can't stop, and I just enjoyed this book so much. What I will say though was that it was much less romancy than ACOTAR, and I was fine with that. By the time I got into the story and the characters, I didn't really mind that there wasn't as much romance, and that wasn't the main focus of it. But when I say this book went from 0 to 100, and you know there are some books that have like spicy romance that just kind of like allude to things, and there are other authors who just like throw it all out there on the page with layers and layers and layers of detail. I was sitting on the train reading this yesterday feeling genuinely embarrassed because I was like, oh my god, I did not see this coming at all, and it is just so full on, but very, very good all in all. I really love the book, really love the characters. I just can't wait to see what happens in the next book. And I didn't have any idea how much bigger Iron Flame was than Fourth Wing, but I found it in a bookshop in London and it was colossal. Because of that, I didn't actually buy a copy then because I just didn't have room in my bag for it, but I am so excited to read Iron Flame. Although I do feel I'm in a bit of a weird place with reading right now, not because I'm not enjoying books, because as you can tell, I'm really loving books like Fourth Wing and like the ACOTAR series, but because I'm now only like a month away from going on a big 3-week camping holiday. Me and Jay are going on a road trip. I think I mentioned this in my last vlog as well, but we're doing France, Switzerland, Italy, Slovenia, Austria and Germany for just over 3 weeks in July and August, and I'm so excited. But I feel like all of the books that I want to read, I'm now like thinking maybe I should save that for holiday. And of course a road trip is beautiful because it means you are not restricted by how many books you can bring, unlike when you are packing a suitcase or hand luggage to go on a plane. And so I've obviously got the last 2 books in ACOTAR, I've got Iron Flame, and I'm like, I want to read them now, but I would regret if I didn't have them to dive into on my holiday. So I feel like I'm going to have the next few weeks where I'm just kind of like meandering around, not wanting to pick up anything that I'm too excited for because I want to save them for my holiday. But I suppose that's a nice luxury to have, and I will so enjoy digging into those books when I get to France and start my holiday. But yeah, I'm just so excited and I can't wait to see where the series goes next. So with that said, this has been a jam-packed vlog full of yet another new favourite book and also the Eras tour, which feels like it was a lifetime ago now, but it was just incredible. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another vlog very soon.